talking about the future and returning to Labour's potential of winning and maybe some view of positive change, even though Brexit isn't really on the agenda for them. What advice would you give to Keir Starmer at this stage for the upcoming election, and how do you think he should handle it?
Look, I think that if you look at a few years, Keir's my MP, right, and he lives not far away, and I see him from time to time. And the first time I ever heard him, to my mind, articulate what I would define as what we were talking about earlier as a strategy, okay, was through there in my living room, and we're having a cup of tea, and I was saying, this was way back, not long after I become leader, and I was saying, look, why aren't we doing this, and why aren't you doing this, and why aren't you doing this, and what about this, and then, and I was saying, you know, why aren't you hitting them harder on Brexit? Why aren't you hitting them harder on this and that? And he said, look, I'm trying to. He said, I've got my strategy over this Parliament is in 3 stages. First of all, we took such a hammering in 2019. I've got to completely decontaminate the brand post-Corbyn, post-anti-Semitism. And that means showing that the Labour Party has changed. Okay. Now, I think he's done that pretty effectively, actually. The second stage is to show that the Tories are unfit for office. Okay. Now, the Tories have given him massive help on that, but don't underestimate. I think he's got better and better in Parliament. I think they have been pretty effective. I think one of the reasons that Johnson finally got done over the COVID stuff in terms of getting, you know, that parliamentary report was actually some of the staging points were questions that Keir was asking along the way. You know, that didn't necessarily always get massive coverage at the time, but they were kind of, you know, they were staging points. So that's the second stage. And then he said the third stage is to set out with real clarity why and how a Labour government will be different. Now, I think that's where we are now. And so when you say what would my advice be, it would be to say, right, that is where we are now. And that has got to become absolutely crystal clear so that when people go into the ballot box, it's not just that they know what they're voting against, they know as well what they're voting for. And it's got to be, you know, back to the attention span thing. There's a reason why Sunak stands there every time with these 5 priorities. I mean, I think, you know, he's wrong in what they are, and I don't think he's very good at delivering them. But it's, you know, you need that sense of clarity about this is what we're going to do. And Labour have got to get to that position of so that, and also for their activists when they're out in I was at an event recently in Oxfordshire, and I got a question from a guy in the audience. He said, I've been a member of the Labour Party 50 years, and I've always felt comfortable being a member of the Labour Party. But when I'm out and about at the moment, people say, yeah, but what am I voting for? You see, I find it quite difficult to answer. And I said, well, that's not your problem. That's not your fault. We're back to the point we talked about earlier. That's a lack of clarity about what the overall strategy is. So that's the bit that's got to become clear in the next weeks and months. Because, you know, election campaigns themselves, they can change things at the margins, but the fundamentals are being established now.
Oftentimes, I guess Keir Starmer is often leveled with the accusation that he's boring, he's uncharismatic. I remember I watched a little snippet of you on, I think, Tortoise Media, and you said that Keir should own up to the accusation of being boring. Like it's something that he should, I don't know, maybe take with pride or say, oh, well, a bunch of our last politicians, our last prime minister was a absolute clown. You know, he just should purely just own up to the fact that he's boring. I don't think I quite said that. I don't think he should go around saying, hey, look at me, I'm boring. Because I actually don't think he is boring. I think he's interesting. He's got a very, very interesting life story. If he becomes prime minister, he'll be one of a pretty small number of genuinely working class people who gets to the top. I mean, his background was not at all privileged. The Tories do this Sir Keir Islington thing, even though the Sir comes with the fact of being the DPP, and he's never lived in Islington in his life. But I think his backstory is interesting. I think his methods are interesting. He's not. I think what I probably meant by that, I don't remember the interview, but I think what I probably meant by that is that you have to kind of accept who and what you are and then project that. So he's not got Barack Obama's voice.
he doesn't have, Bill Clinton, Tony Blair kind of charisma, but he's got something very, very strong. And I think the fact that he's serious, one of the things that's really interesting about when he was up against Johnson, I know for a fact, because I was seeing from time to time at the time, he absolutely despised what Johnson was doing to our politics, to our public life and so forth. But I don't think that ever really came across, because he was always holding himself back a bit as, if you like, the lawyer. Now, what I would say, I definitely think there's mileage in saying, if he was doing this interview and he was in an election campaign and somebody said to him, but look, Keir, we've just done a survey and the one word that people most identify with you is boring. What do you say to that? I say, well, look, I'd say, I think I'm doing an important job. And I think it's interesting that somebody like me from my background has got into this position, is doing this. But if you want a comedian, go to the theatre. If you want somebody who makes you go all tingly, go and listen to your favorite music. I'm a serious guy doing what will be the most serious job in the country if I get there. And I think people are sick to death of the style of politics that we've seen with Trump, with Johnson, and people have got to take me as I am. I think the other point I did say in that interview is I think that it's very interesting that the next election, assuming that Sunak and Starmer are both there, which I think they will be, then it's going to be fought by two guys who've only been MPs for about 8 years. That's a very short time in historical terms for. So they haven't necessarily got as much experience as a lot of party leaders get before going into an election. And I think you should own that as well. I think you say, look, maybe what you mean when you say I'm not this and I'm not that is that I'm not like a lot of the politicians you've seen. Well, no, I'm not. I'm more serious. I'm not interested in the theatre. I'm not interested in the blah. I hate Prime Minister's question time. I want to just get out there and fix the country.